I hope that by now you have realized that these verbal communications are meant for sharing perception and understanding. They are not statements of theories and not meant for propagation of any philosophy. They are friendly conversations, if you like, friendly communications. I'm going to invite you to work rather hard this morning with me, and perhaps for the next 2 days also. We had promised ourselves that we would be exploring living in wholeness in this week-long gathering. So let us begin at the very beginning and look at the issue from as many angles as it's humanly possible to look at it. I wonder if you have noticed that life has two expressions. One, non-individuated organic wholeness. And two, individuated substances, objects, and identities. What we call space or emptiness is a non-individuated organic wholeness. It's one expression of life. There may be innumerable energies concealed, contained in the emptiness. But there is that majestic emptiness of space by which we are surrounded, whether we are inside the house or outside of the house. In order to live in the wholeness of life, one has to expose oneself consciously to this unindividuated wholeness or manifestation of wholeness. To be with the emptiness of space, maybe in the backyard of your apartment, maybe in a nearby park, maybe in your garden, to be with that space without any motivation, just to expose yourself to the embrace of the space, of the emptiness. And to be in that embrace of emptiness, the space with innumerable energies contained in it, is one way of relating to the wholeness. Being unindividuated, it is unanalyzable. It is a mysterious wholeness, indivisible, non-fragmentable. I wonder if you have noticed that when you expose yourself to the sunlight, another expression of unindividuated reality, you expose yourself to the sun, and the energies contained in the light operate upon you. You have to be there effortlessly. You have to be there in a relaxed way. You have just to be there, not to do anything, not to seek anything. As the embrace of space vitalizes you, it operates upon you. In the same way, the light and warmth of the sun vitalizes you without your moving a finger. It's a relation. It's a relationship with the wholeness. I do not know if you have ever exposed yourself consciously to beautiful darkness, darkness of the night. Sitting quietly in a state of non-action with the beautiful darkness, non-individuated. As the light of the sun works like a stimulant and vitalizes, the darkness pacifies, tranquilizes the tortured nerves, soothes them, and relaxes. Living in wholeness is living in relatedness to the darkness, to the light, to the space, to the emptiness. We have a mysterious relationship with them. And the stress and the strain of the day melts away when you are in the darkness, letting it operate upon you. Perhaps the best tranquilizer. Not in passivity, not in inertia, but in love and concern, you expose yourself. We are not going to elaborate. The same with the waters. When you swim and allow the energy of the water to operate upon you, without owning, without possessing, without calling it your own, you are with the cosmic. You are with the wholeness. So this motivation-free relationship through a simple exposure seems to be a very significant and important aspect of living in wholeness. You may go jogging in the morning and say, I have been in the light, I have been with the earth, etc. That's a different thing. One is talking of just being with the beingness of life. An effort-free, relaxed way. Living the relationship with them. You are a part of the cosmic mystery. It's no use denying that life is a mystery. The wholeness, the interrelatedness, whether you call it divinity or you call it mystery, it is just the same for me. Then we come to another expression, which is individuated expression of the wholeness. The energies contained in the wholeness, contained in the emptiness of space, through their interaction, through their mingling with one another, begin to wear what you call substance or a form. They begin to appear solidified. And when we see these solidified energies wearing forms and substances, we call them objects. This is the world of visible, tangible, individuated expressions of wholeness. They are expressions of wholeness, whether it's a tree, a plant, a blade of grass, a stone, a rock, a pebble on the seashore. We may name them, we may identify them, we may try to analyze their energies, utilize them, try to channelize those energies, make them subservient to our needs and requirements. But their individuation is not the result of our thought or our effort. It is the wholeness of life which plays the game with itself of emerging into forms and substances, emerging into individuated expressions, and merging back into the non-individuated ocean of wholeness. So as we have to live with the mystery of the wholeness and live our relatedness to it by relating to the non-individuated expressions, we live and we have to live with the individuated expressions. These energies which appear solidified have tremendous dynamism in them. Through your science, You have even explored and analyzed the quantum of energy contained in an atom, electron, proton, neutron. That's just one aspect of the energy, not the totality. But we have seen that what appears solid, what we call an object, what we call matter, is nothing but amalgamated energies. Through interaction they mingle, and through mingling with one another, they wear forms, they wear substances. It's a marvelous play that goes on in this wholeness of life. So we have the privilege and responsibility of relating with the visible, the tangible, the individuated. And it is possible for us to relate to them the innumerable objects, self-generated, self-sustained, having creative and destructive energy contained in them. Have you noticed dynamic energy is contained in a tiny seed? You sow the seed in the earth and it sprouts, and a sapling, and a plant, and a tree. The flowers, the fruits, tiny seed. Solidified energies. An expression of the wholeness of life. So we can relate to these objects through our beautiful senses with which we are gifted. We can look at them and kiss them with our eyes. We can listen to the sound. We can smell. We feel the touch and so on. At the sensual level, this relatedness with the visible and tangible has its own ecstasy. And these visible, tangible, so-called objects or entities have many lessons to teach us. We have to read the book of life and learn from it. Life is the master supreme, the teacher supreme. There is no better teacher than life and its dynamism. Now these visible and tangible objects, they are changing. It's a flux of change. They are never the same. So when we relate ourselves sensually to them, we can receive their energies. We can enjoy the fruits, the flowers, the grains, the cereals, the vegetables, and so on. As per our needs and requirements, we receive. We give them back our care and concern. Nurture them. It's a relationship of give and take with nature. But as it is changing all the time, that constant flux of change teaches us a lesson receive, use to serve your requirements, but do not get attached to us. This constant change that you see around in the material world is the best teacher to teach non-attachment. We do not have to read a book for it. Because that which is changing cannot be held, owned, or possessed. The relationship is based on the austerity of your needs, of your requirements. So at the sensual level, to feel the beauty, if we were not gifted with the senses and their contact with the objective world, stimulating certain sensations brought back to the body, getting converted into electric impulses, traveling to your cerebral organ, getting interpreted in 100 fraction of a second, as per our upbringing, culture and education. And then the emotional reaction or the evaluation of it. Marvelous way of getting related. It's the beauty of life, the sensual part of it. If we learn the lesson of non-attachment, if there is a relationship of reception as per needs and requirements and not out of greed, then the agricultural fields, the gardens, the forests, the lakes, the rivers, the fruits, the vegetables, they contribute not only the wealth of health, but also the wealth of emotional experiences, a sense of beauty, a sense of flavor, taste, and so on. Life would be really not worth living if we did not have this sensual level. And then as we grow from childhood into youth, into adulthood, into old age, the capacity of senses changes. Their inclinations, without your effort, go on changing. As the outer is changing, the inner also changes. To witness the change, inner and outer, and to move with it without trying to hold on. You don't hold on to childhood because it is beautiful. You cannot get stuck up in the youth. It's a marvelous phase of living, and you enjoy it. You live it thoroughly with the fullness, wholeness of your being. But then it has to give place to adulthood, and then old age, ripening, maturing through growth. So non-attachment inwardly and outwardly is a lesson that the sensual, the sexual teach us. Living is learning. Living is a movement of learning, discovering personally, understanding the truth behind the facts, and feel the mystery behind the truth. If we get attached to the physical, the biological, if we get attached to a number of impulses contained in the biological structure and want to use the body, exploiting those sensual capacities or sexual capacities to escape boredom, to run away from fear, to exercise domination, to exercise possessiveness, to gratify anger, to gratify the urge for being violent. If we misuse the sensual, the sexual, the biological structure, which is tremendous wealth, which is an expression of the wholeness of life. If we pamper it, if we suppress it, if we repress it, if we exploit it, not responding to the needs of the body, responding to the sexual impulse, or the impulse of appetite, or thirst, or impulse to sleep, and so on, beautiful impulses. They have their spontaneous momentum, unrelated to your thought structure, unrelated to your knowledge. It's part of life. It's so sacred. If we do not exploit it for our psychological purposes and respond to it, then the relationship of the sensual with the outer, the relationship of the sensual and sexual to the inner growth of life is something fantastically beautiful. Behind or beyond this visible and tangible, beyond and behind the individuated, solidified energies which we call objects, is the world of the invisible, which you call the occult, the transcendental, the extrasensory, which cannot be touched with the senses. And here, the capacity to think, to imagine, to guess, to calculate, with the help of mathematics, physics, engineering, science, etc., it is possible to know about these invisible energies. We discovered electricity. We have now discovered solar energy and other bioenergies. We have discovered bioelectricity contained in our body, operating upon the immune system in the body. So there are so many energies which have been discovered with the help of the brain and its various faculties, various capacities contained in the brain. You touch the object, you analyze it, you experiment upon it, you explore, and you discover the energies contained, the invisible energies, and you learn to relate to them. civilization has been built upon the utilization and channelization of these invisible energies. So in the wholeness of life, these energies also have a role to play. As it has been done in Europe and America with the help of science and technology, the people living in Asia, right from Middle East, I should say, from Persia, Georgia, Caucasus Mountain, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, parts of Russia, and so on, right up to the whole of Asia, China, Southeast Asia, and so on. There have been efforts to discover these invisible energies through the science of yoga, with the help of mantra, which is metaphysics of sound energy, science of using sound energy, tantra, mantra, yoga. The Orientals have worked hard through centuries on finding out ways of relating to the invisible energies contained in the occult, the transcendental, through meditation, through yoga, through tantra, through mantra, and so on. So there are ways of relating to the energies. And for the West, it was Madame Blavatsky who started talking about it in 1868 in California. I am very glad that recently in Soviet Russia they celebrated the literature of Madame Blavatsky, decided to translate all her literature into Russian language. Rather, Bernier, the president of World Theosophical Society, was specially invited, and Russia is going to celebrate 1991 as Madame Blavatsky year. 100 years her books were not allowed to be read in Russia. But she was the lady who talked about the occult, the transcendental, manifested how there could be a relationship with it. So she was on par with scientists, and so on. That's one aspect of being related to the wholeness of life. It's quite an adventure, whether you do it through physics and chemistry, biology, your genetic engineering, or with computers, etc., or you do it with your tantra, mantra, yoga. Because it is dealing with the invisible, it's quite a dangerous field to trade. Though it has been explored, and there are sciences, there are methods, techniques, as you have in physics and chemistry, there are techniques, methods, procedures, systems of getting related and living in the relationship with this invisible. And we have invisible part of ourselves. Behind the sensual, the sexual, there is what you call a psychological If you tear the body, you cannot show that psychological, anatomically speaking. But it is there. What we call the thought structure, the psychological structure. We have our invisible part, developed through civilization and culture. And we will talk about it, if not today, tomorrow, how one relates to the invisible, the mental, the thought structure. The orbit of ideation, conceptualization, defense mechanisms, habit patterns, all invisible. You won't see it through your X-ray machines. As you won't see the chakras or the points of acupressure and acupuncture with your screening machine or X-ray machine. It's a different way of touching the reality within you. So, comparable to the invisible outside, there is an invisible aspect of life, of wholeness within us, within the body. Behind, beneath, deeper than the sensual, which can be touched, which can be understood. You can deal with your optical instrument, optical nerves, auditory system, middle ear, inner ear, connection with brain, and so on. With your organs inside. Doctors have nearly become the mechanics of the inner being. Repairing, transplanting, changing, you know. So the visible and the invisible. Invisible for us is the psychological, about which we shall talk. And beyond the invisible is the trans-psychological inside us. And beyond the invisible in the outside is the infinite. The visible, the invisible, the infinite. The non-individuated, the individuated. The biological, the sensual, then the psychological, the thought, experience, knowledge, collective unconscious, your conscious, subconscious, unconscious, everything included in it. And beyond that, the trans-psychological, the abode of love, compassion, peace, humility, etc. You know, living in wholeness implies cognition of all this. Now, this is not a man-made world, except the thought structure, which we will look into tomorrow or day after, I don't know how it comes. But we must turn to a third aspect of living in the wholeness, and that is our relationship to the man-made world. Not only the thought structure inside us, but outside, between the self-generated, self-sustained, wholeness by which we are surrounded in non-individuated and individuated forms, between that and ourselves is a man-made world of socio-economic, political structures, nations, states, their relationships, earning a livelihood, jobs, business, trade, schools. So there is the man-made world, which cannot be avoided. May I continue for another 5 minutes? So there is this man-made world, the human society. However imperfect it might be, it has been growing, passing through capitalism, socialism, communism, the rise and fall of communism as an ideology, as an empire in the 20th century. Modifications, qualifications in the capitalist system. Gandhian philosophy, the rise and fall of Gandhian philosophy in India. Very interesting phenomenon, as the rise and fall of communism in Europe is. So many experiments have been going on. Agriculture, industrialization, automation, cybernetic revolution, mechanization of life, depending more on machines than upon one another, spending most of the life with machines than with one another, breaking of family as the primary unit of society, cult of individualism, then the isolation resulting from the culmination of individualism. You know, human society in all parts of the world has gone through so many changes and is still changing. The collective instinct for survival pushes the human race towards new experimentations, and we are seeing the dawn of a new spiritual awakening, where there is a willingness to examine and reconsider what was once worshipped in the 18th, 19th, or the first half of 20th century. The ecological imbalances in the post-industrial revolution days has stirred the psyche of the human race, and we have started looking at our life. Where have we gone wrong? Where was the mistake? Psychically, socially, economically, what shall we do? It's a beautiful period to live in, thrilling. In the midst of devastation, killings, violence, we see the silver lining to the black clouds of destruction. In this new awakening, So we have to live in this man-made world. Here is the opportunity in the man-made world to choose, to select, to find out how much physical and cerebral exertion the body can take, how much stress and strain it can enjoy, it can take, because growth does require exertion. If you remain static, if you remain in inertia, if you remain passive, inactive, always postponing decisions and actions, there is no growth. Then you stink of atrophy of energies. So, one has to find out in this man-made world, which is extremely complicated, one has to find out a way with and with a full sense of responsibility. When one has chosen and selected the place to live, the job to do, etc., then one accepts everything that comes in doing that job or being in that profession. Then there is no friction, no martyr complex, no poor me business, because you have chosen and selected with a sense of responsibility. And if there is pain, if there is humiliation, if there is discomfort, you say this is part of the game. You learn to accept then. After selection, after your choice, there has to be an attitude of acceptance. It's not the stress and strain that ruins us, but our reaction to the stress and strain that causes the devastation and destruction. Then the poor me, the martyr complex, releases negative energies in the body. It blocks the creative energies. My attitude, my reaction to the stress and strain, I knew jolly well before that it's going to cause stress and strain. I knew jolly well what is city life, but I have accepted it. And then you accept it 50%, and 50% you go on grumbling, carrying this inner friction, saturating your body with negative energies. That's stupidity. Sheer stupidity. Sheer stupidity. So, in the wholeness of life, one has to find out where one wants to stand in the society. Does one accept the value structures of the society, the priorities of society? If one does not agree and sees that it's all wrong, then has one got the courage to stand up alone for one's understanding? Is there willingness to be called a crazy person by the people working with you in the office or school or whatever? To stand up, to live up to your understanding, your choice. If that causes aloneness, then is there a willingness to live in that inner aloneness? Either you live in that inner aloneness or you follow the stream, the majority. There is no third option. Going against the stream of social priorities, social values, structures, etc., etc. Going against all, you cannot expect that people will understand you, cooperate with you, appreciate, be very friendly with you, show enthusiasm about your crazy ways of living. That cannot happen. And when I say society, maybe your mother, your father, your husband, your wife, your son, your brother. Freedom causes vulnerability to criticisms, to judgments by other people. If I feel that I am doing what I am doing choicelessly because I want to do it, then the appreciations, the criticisms, of the other people, what the other people say, doesn't affect me. Then it doesn't bother me and doesn't cause a sense of loneliness because I know what the others are doing is wrong according to my perception. It's incorrect. It leads to violence. It leads to misery. And I would like to end psychological misery and suffering, which is religiosity, which is spirituality, which is living in wholeness. So, I would live in harmony with my biological, psychological, and trans-psychological. So this morning, we have worked rather hard to look at the wholeness of life from different angles. And we have explored verbally how to relate to that wholeness, how to relate to different aspects of the wholeness. Thank you for your cooperation. But why should, at the end of 8 or 10 years of education, why should one feel that one is stuck up somewhere? How can education land you in a state of feeling stuck up? I hope you see my question. In spite of education, in spite of correcting ways of my life, my living, say I have learned yoga and asanas and pranayama, and that has improved my health. I have changed my habits of diet, and that has helped me to remain healthy, supple, energetic. I have learned to relax, or at least abstain from speaking, or relax in silence. And that relaxation has helped me. What do we mean by transformation? if even after knowing the truth, seeing the fact of what knowledge is, what cerebral movement is, what is the implication of the movement of thought structure, after having seen all that through observation, I still cling to the verbal. I still cling to the thought movement, thought structure. I know it is false in the sense that it has no factual content. I still cling to it. Having known about the other, the unconditioned, the unknown, the unknowable, I still cling to the known. The perception of the other has not given me courage or fearlessness to let go the authority of the thought movement. The thought movement had been equated to the whole of living. Now I realize that it's only one part. And I realize that there is another dimension to my consciousness. This is only one part of it. And yet, having lived in that for centuries through the human race, being a product of the human race, there is reluctance to let the known go, to let the false fall away. If that is so, and if that inner reluctance, unverbalized reluctance or fear of letting the known or the thought go into abeyance or non-action, if that prevents the dimensional jump into the supreme intelligence and awareness, why should we blame self-education? Self-education has not created that reluctance. It must have been there even before I started, but I wasn't aware of it. It's the fear of being on an uncharted sea. It's the fear of being with an impersonal energy of intelligence. Fear of being with the non-personal divinity that keeps me tethered to the known, to the experienced, to the thought structure, its movement, and my knowledge becomes my bondage. People are afraid of meditation. Verbal inquiry, yes. Observation, yes. Coming to the frontiers of the known, yes. And then, thus far and no further. Unless the other, the supreme energy of intelligence, assures me that I would be safe and I would be able to manipulate the divine as per my wishes and convenience, I won't let go the known, the past. Do you see? Why blame self-education? Is transformation for gifted persons like ABCD, XYZ? What is a gifted person? A young man in the 20th century who had nearly the whole religious world at his feet, sees the truth and says, I am not the world teacher, I am not Maitreya, I am not Buddha, this is not second coming of Jesus Christ, I am a simple person, Jiddu Krishnamurti, and walks away from the affluence. Did he do it because he was gifted? Or because truth was his life? I am not going back to Buddhas 2,500 years ago. Here, it has happened in this very century. And don't think he did not have to pay the price for it. Jolly well he had to, and he did it. It's not a question of being gifted. It's a question of our priority. It's a question of dedication. India, when she became politically free, was divided into India and Pakistan. Before the division, there was an understanding in 1946 that Pakistan would be given a certain amount of money. And after independence, the Indian government did not want to do it. And Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, he said, now I am going to fast unto death. You had given the promise. Oh, but they killed so many Hindus. They sent back so many Hindus. There has been a bloodbath. We are not going to give the money. He said, Your assurance to give the amount was not dependent upon what they were going to do. It was a solemn promise, given not to them, but even to yourselves. He made the Indian government pay the amount, and he was shot dead for that crime. That was priority. That was dedication. Socrates knew that he would be arrested. His friends wanted to help him to get out of the prison. But he preferred the glass of hemlock, the poison. That's your choice. You are interested in living, the act of living, the movement of living. And what is the movement of living if not the manifestation of your own understanding, your own faith? And the love and compassion that accompany the faith and understanding. It's not a question of being gifted or not gifted. So let us be honest with ourselves and ask of ourselves whether there is a yearning for unconditional freedom. If there is a holistic urge for dimensional quantum jump into meditation, where your sense of being somebody and something gets dissolved completely, and you live in the awareness of nothingness and nobodiness, or the wholeness. State of meditation where you belong to all, you belong to the whole of life, choicelessly, or you belong nowhere. We will take it up tomorrow morning. Let us stop now.